Kia ora, New Zealand. Welcome to Sweet Chain Live. My name's Matt Drake. This is episode 90. 90, Brady. We were discussing just before the show about how we're hurtling towards three figures. How are you this evening?
I am, well, pretty daunting and impressive that we're almost at 100 episodes now. I can't even believe. I feel like episode 50 was just like a couple months ago.
Yeah. It was certainly some time ago. So, So look, we're going to be doing some planning for what the 100th show. By the looks of it, we're looking ahead on the calendar, and it says that episode 99 will be on the 22nd of December. That's the one just before Christmas. We'll then have the week in between Christmas and New Year off because we deserve a holiday, quite frankly. And so the 100th episode will be our first Thursday night back in the new year. So anyway, we've got a great show for you tonight. We've got Levi Stout joining us live from Invercargill, talk us through the Twizel, which happened at the weekend, Moonbase 8, which he took out, of course. And then we've got... we're going to go through a little discussion on tournament costs, something that people have been talking to me a little bit about, and both on the course and off the course. Going to look at payouts, some payout MPO and professional division payouts. We're going to have a little discussion about that. I think the analytics team probably need to do some wider scale analysis before we can have a real in-depth conversation on that. And also, when is an ace not an ace? Something happened over the week that got me thinking about this, and so we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Right, but first, Brady, hot scores, take us through the South.
Through the South, as ever, starting down at Invercargill. Let's go to Queen's Park and Brenly Marshall coming in at a -6 for the hot round this week. Can't wait for those tee pads to dry. Hope those hot scores will come in over summer. Let's go up to Dunedin, Chingford Park. Sarah Wadsworth comes in with -7 for the hot round this week. And over at Brockville, Auckland's own Jackson Sullivan comes in with a -7 and an ace. Speaking of, I'm pretty sure he picked one up on hole 8, I believe it was this week. So congratulations, Jackson. Up to Queenstown, the Queenstown Gardens, Ben Dowdy and Brandon getting it done with a -8. And over at Tucker's Beach, Arthur Graham comes in with a -2 for the hot round to round out Queenstown. If we go over the Crown Range into Wanaka, Ely Point has Matt Pritchard and Ollie Webb shooting a -4 for the hot round this week. And Lismore Park, Ryan Cambridge is back on the show, at least by name anyway, with a 12 under par at Lismore for the hot round. Up to the Garden City, Jelly Park, Dwayne Fisher comes in with a 13 under par. Out at Brooker Ave, Callie Thompson comes in at -2. Queen's Park Reserve sees a trio up the top. So we have Lewis Stridham, Zach Taylor, and Paddy Padariki Caffel coming in at 7 under par for the hot round. And to round out the South Island at Warren Park, Willie Taratna comes in with a 10 under par for the hot round in the Garden City. Matt, take us through the North.
Yeah, so starting in the capital, at Berhampore, it's Francis Orange, who hits 7 under par at the Hills course in Berhampore. Over at Hikoikoi, across the water, Ben Morrison hits 5 down on the foreshore. Up at Harcourt Park, Evan Williams hits 8 under par. That's the second hottest round of this year. So well done to Evan. Linklater, it's Ephraim Russell, who hits 7 under par. He's been doing the business. He's filled the top 10 at Linklater. Over at Maryland's, and it's Jason Mallion who hits 4 under par. Spa Park belongs to Sean Ashford this week with -1. Up at McLaren's, Quentin Suppers hits +2. And at Henderson, it's a tie between Henry Pearson and Tim Marshall, who take out the hot scores with 5 under par. So we also had Moonbase 8 took place last weekend. Weekend just gone. And so I'll just quickly share the results with you here before we bring our guest on. There we go. Here we are.
Yeah, I was going to say, I heard it was quite the battle. 3 tied up the top in a 3-way playoff, I guess, to decide a winner, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
And it was close. It was close all the way with Levi Jackson Callie Thompson, all tied up after 4 rounds, with the 3 of them then playing off and Levi taking out the playoff. We'll hear a little bit more about how that happened. Joseph Berry's always been there or thereabouts, coming in 4th place, and then Jasper van der Meer and Ethan Stout tied for 5th. Further down, Hayley Flintoft hits the hot round amongst the women with 5 under par. Tom McKay takes out the MP40 division by quite some distance. That's not a mean. It's quite an impressive thing to beat Hemio, but by 17 shots. So well done to Tom. And Sebastian Faulkner takes out the MA1 division by 19 shots over Kyle Barringer and Ben Quinn. We'll see what happens to the rankings for a bunch of those guys, because it's certainly something which is quite interesting. Quite some interesting changes in the rankings. We'll get to that later on. Right, so now it's time for our guest at this time, which is Levi Stout. Good evening, Levi.
Hi, Matt. How you doing?
I'm all right. How have you been? It's been a little bit of time since you were last on the show.
Yeah, I think we calculated it the other day, and it was like 7 months, 8 months, something like that.
Well, it's great to have you back, and you're winning tournaments again.
Again? Yeah. Good to be at the top.
Does anything make Moonbase special compared to other wins you've had in the past?
It was my first divisional defense in Open of a title. So, because I won Tucker's 2 years in a row, but that doesn't count because I played junior the first time I won it. So this is my first actual back-to-back. So it's good to check that one off the list.
Indeed. And there was also something a bit special about this one, because you had to do it in a playoff, and a playoff with 2 other players as well.
Yeah. Got a bit tight there on the lead card with Jacko and Kelly. It was a really good battle the whole way through. I think I was behind by about 3 with 5 to play. I fought my way back and forced my way into that playoff.
Yeah, it was really your round 3, which did the business. A 10:37 rated round, which we got half right. We guessed that you would have the hottest round of the weekend, but we underestimated by some 12 rating points. So it was really that 3rd round. Do you find that it takes you time to kind of get into the groove of a tournament?
Yeah, I think a bit of that is just me not knowing the courses quite well enough. Because usually I have just 1 practice round before a tournament, but obviously I'd like that to be more. So part of it's just getting to know the tournament, the courses, and how they're going to play in the tournament. So I often find I'll play best on my 2nd or 3rd rounds. So
the second looking through your stats, the 2nd round seems to be the one where that really kicks it off for you.
Yeah.
Well, and what would you gain by having an extra practice round? So like having 1 gets you to familiarize the course, but like what added bonus would there be to like extra time in the course for you? Like what would you look to gain out of that extra time?
Well, part of it is if there's different conditions, you learn the course and how it plays in all the different conditions. Just knowing the course better in general is a big one. And obviously, if you're spending like 2 days on the course, then you're a bit more used to where you're staying. Because usually the first night when you're somewhere else is a bit rough. So it's just a combination of all that.
Well, I was going to say, does that mean you're going to be a touring pro here before too long? Have like a little van or RV set up as you travel around the country playing tournaments?
That'll be the plan, but the Picton to Wellington journey might be a bit far from Invercargill. That'll be a bit of a nightmare trying to get up north in a van.
No, it looks like you've been outvoted actually. So that's not happening. But no. So it must have been good to play up against Jack. Obviously, you've played him many times, and you know him very well, being a teammate on RPM there. Had you played much against Callie?
No, first time I've ever played around with him. I know of him because I'm friends with some of the Christchurch boys. But that was my first time playing with him, and my first round playing with him. What I noticed is that he was just making all his putts and throwing good drives on the holes that he needed to. So, like you said, the second round where I shot a really hot round, I checked scores after, and Callie had kept up with me, even though I felt like I was smoking everyone. But Callie was just chipping at it, getting the easy birdies and avoiding the bogeys.
Yeah, I mean, I played one round with Callie at Peter Crowther a couple of years ago, and he had a bag of the oldest looking discs you've ever seen, but made every circle one putt. It was crazy, and that's really, especially on a short course like Peter Crowther, that's what you need. So talk us through your kind of plan between now and major season, which happens in February, because you've got what? November, December, January, plus a couple of weeks, 3.5 months until 3 big tournaments in the space of like 6 weeks. You've probably got your eyes, and there's other events in between. Appreciate that, but you've obviously got your eyes on taking out 1, 2, or 3 of those tournaments. What do you do? What did you do between now and then?
Well, obviously I got exams that are starting in 3 weeks, something like that. So I got to keep mum happy and study for those.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay in school. Yeah.
But I'm sure there'll be plenty of spare time on exam leave. But the main plan, I imagine, will be up in Manapori. So we'll be playing Taonau a lot. And my plan would, because we're only playing Heislander, I think, before the Nationals, or before majors. So my plan will probably be just do lots and lots of field work.
Lots and lots of field work.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds boring, but that's what works, right?
Yeah. Just getting form down, getting everything feeling smooth, and hopefully putting on a few more yards on the throw.
Yards sounds like you're talking American already.
Yeah.
But so now I kind of have a question coming into national. So like last year, you were like picked as one of the favorites, and like went and were battling with Jay for the title here in Wellington last year, but ended up the bridesmaid. Came up just short, kind of in that last round. Like this weekend, and if you look at the string of like your last, 8 events, you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last 5 events, you're top dog. You're winning all of them. How do you make sure that you're on top of that podium at nationals come major season, rather than just the bridesmaid?
Well, one of the things that I was thinking about after nationals, because obviously I was disappointed after nationals, I took some time just to reflect. And thinking back to nationals, I realized that going into nationals, I didn't think I was gonna win. Had no expectations, and I was looking just to be top 3 or somewhat up there. And even going into the final round, Simon, I was still in second, so I didn't actually lose any places because I still finished in second. But being at the top this next season will be harder than it's ever been, just because of the quality of players is constantly increasing, and everyone seems to be throwing.
Everyone seems to be throwing and pause.
Complete the sentence, if you will, in the comments. But the Invercargill internet has disappeared.
Must be like Omarama and below. Generation Disc Golf seems to have this same issue, and I know that they're down that way.
Indeed. Okay, right. Well, hopefully we shall have Levi back shortly.
Well,
there we go. But pretty impressive, Brady.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, he's coming up in the idea of it's interesting that kind of like mindset plays a big thing in the idea that he said going into that final round he didn't think he was going to win, and so when he kind of like comes out of it, like, yeah, he's like, oh, well, I didn't lose any places. Like, I finished in second. And so when you look at it that way, it's like, cool. But, a lot of people sitting on the sidelines, and I know his mom was one of them. I was there, like on the 18th green, and she's like, oh, man, I got to go find Levi's discs in the bushes. Otherwise, I'm going to have like one terrible toddler, as it were. No, but, like the people are wanting him to win and picking him to win. So, like it's interesting to see him kind of talk about mindset already at such a early stage of his career.
I think we've got him back, so let's bring him back to finish the sentence. There we go. Too many people in the household streaming at the same time, is it? Or
yeah, something like that. I'm a bit far from the router as well, so a bit of dodgy Wi-Fi.
So you said so many players are throwing what this year when it comes to like being up the top?
They're throwing far. Everyone just seems to be putting on yards, and I used to think of myself as one of the bigger throwers in New Zealand, but now some of the up and comers, especially from Christchurch, are just ripping.
So what's a big throw in the world of Levi? If you're one of the top dogs in distance?
Oh, I think in New Zealand, the standard to throw far, like I'd consider myself to throw far, the standard that I'd put on it would be throwing further than about 125, and anything further than 140 in New Zealand is just elite. So I can only think of about 4 people that can do that.
And that's like on a regular basis, like on a flat day, going where you want it to, not just slinging it 140 meters from your position, but actually in the direction you want it to as well.
Yeah.
Who are those 4? I'm curious. Put you on the spot.
The 4, I'd definitely say Jacko and Simon have still got it in them. Joe, Berry, he's crushing recently. And I'm sure there's more, but off the top of my head, I'd go like John Hughes.
Ooh, 2 Christchurch boys, 2 Auckland boys.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen the Flexline media coverage of Nelson, where both Joe and John are on the lead card, and Joe particularly makes that course look like a putting green. It's in terms of the length of the holes, it really is quite astounding.
Well, that's something I noticed at Twizel because he was on lead card with me. There's 3 like holes that were about 130 meter par 3s. I'm throwing these big, tall flexes just to get inside the circle. And in warm-ups, I saw him just throw a hyzer. And I'm like, okay, that's cool.
We've had a challenge from Ben Willake, so yeah, I say next time you're in Christchurch or Queenstown even, then that's the challenge there. You touched on earlier, I think, about mindset, and it was something that we briefly talked about when you connection stopped. Do you find that you've got to change your mindset this season now that there's kind of an expectation almost that you're going to win? I mean, you've won the last 5 tournaments. You finished in the top 2 in the whole of this season, whole of this calendar year, I should say. And actually, you have to go back to the Fling last October to find a tournament that you didn't either win or place second at. So there's an expectation, certainly from the outside world, and I know we've spoken about it on this show about predicting you to win. Do you find that you have to change your expectation? And how does that then affect elements of your game? Or do you just block it all out? What do you do?
That's a good question. Well, I obviously expect myself to be near the top, because I know that if I play to the best of my ability, I can win. And it's really just about getting there, because I can't always play your best golf. So one of the main things is just making sure I'm focusing on the process. Try not to check scores and things like that, because that just makes you think about the outcome, not the process. Break it down a bit more. It makes it a bit easier. Just take it shot by shot.
Yeah, and I would say that's a very mature answer. Is there a kind of a next level to that? Because if we were to speak to, and let's say I'm going to exaggerate with my choice of player here, but let's say we were talking to Paul Macbeth about this, he'd be saying, I expect to win everything that I enter, and I'm always going to play aggressive. I'm always going to be trying to go for that win, and I fully expect myself to win. Now, there's a difference there between his mindset, or at least the mindset I've just described, and yours. And so do you think that that's just two different approaches and the same outcomes capable, or do you think that it at some point your mindset will have to elevate's perhaps not the right word, transition to that to that way of thinking in order to be not just the best in this country, but the best in the world?
Well, I think Paul's a bit of a different situation. I think with 6 world titles, you can afford to have that I'm the best mindset. But I don't see my mental game.
I reckon if you asked him when he had no world titles, he'd probably have a similar mindset. I suspect.
Well, I'd say that we do have a similar mindset. It's just how it's framed, because, like I just said, I know that I have the potential to get to the top. It's just whether I do or not that I'm worried about. I'm not worried about whether I can. I'm worried about how I can. And I think that's something that comes a lot, that you will see with Paul on the course, because if you've listened to him, you'll know that him and Ricky and a lot of the other pros, they're always out there looking for the next shot, stepping up to the next tee. Right, what do I have to do here to make birdie? So I think breaking it down, it works for me. For now, we'll see how it works later.
Well, I was going to say, what a lot of people, when they're actually, this is a great question when it comes to winning. Would you rather be out the front? Do you like that kind of power play of having a lead, or do you prefer that chip on the shoulder and the chase someone down?
Ooh. From a comfort perspective, definitely the lead. But I think it is good sometimes being behind, because it just takes a lot of the pressure off you. And I find that I do play better if I have a lead coming out of the gates. But that's just something I've noticed. I think I play the worst actually when I'm neck and neck with someone. I feel like that's the point where I don't have the comfort and I'm nervous. It's a bit of the worst of both worlds. That's what I've noticed in my game, anyways.
So then walk us through Twizel coming down the stretch, you're in the hunt, you're chasing, you finally catch up to push into the playoff. Were you third off the box? How'd the playoff go? Were you still in chase mode? What was your mentality going into I need to win this? What do I have to do to win?
The playoff hole was an interesting one, because it was, for people who've played at Twizel, it's the slalom hole. So it's a hole where it's basically just straight and fairly wide open, except there's 2 big trees just stacked like that in the middle of the fairway. And the Mandos mean you either have to go right and then left of the trees, or left and then right. So the most common play is just a flex forehand. So that me, Callie, and Jacko were talking a lot before, and we all knew that was the playoff hole. So before the actual playoff, we were talking about it, and we all knew that that's the play, and that's how we played it previously. But there was a nasty left to right on it. So any shot that you threw on Anheuser was just going to be smacked down and cut roll and potentially miss the Mandos. So I was second on the tee. I think Jacko was first off the tee. And Jacko's shot didn't miss the Mando, but it cut rolled out just short of the Mando. So he had a weird angle to try scramble for a par. Then I threw, and I threw an all right shot. It was probably circle 2, but it was deep circle 2. So it wasn't a guaranteed birdie look. And then Callie missed the Mando. So it really didn't go down with a bang. It was kind of just, I threw an average-ish shot and made par, and then Jacko and Callie made bogey. So it was a bit of a weird playoff.
Because would you have rather like parked it and had birdie? Like, what does an ideal playoff look like for you, rather than just like you won the event, like you beat Jackson, which arguably some people will never have that opportunity to, like, in their career, and you beat him in a playoff hole. So like, what's an ideal playoff look like to you? Is there like a certain hole that you're like, oh, this is amazing? Is it like someone cashes a big putt? Is it someone aces? Like, what is it? What's a good playoff?
Well, for me, the best playoff holes would have no OB on them other than natural OB and no Mandos on them. Ideally, you'd pick a hole that's got good scoring separation, where the field makes roughly a third birdie, third par, and third bogey. So then there's room to work with. If you throw a good shot, you're rewarded. And if you throw a bad shot, then you're not. I do think par 4 is the way to go. That's just my opinion. I think par 4s just create a bit more tension, a bit more drama. But a middle of the road par 4 would be ideal for me.
Yeah, I guess with a par 4 at least, you have the opportunity to not necessarily be beaten by an average drive.
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
Your approach shot can be very good and rescue that average drive and still pick up a birdie and not be beaten.
Yeah.
So do you have any insider knowledge for, like, nationals, what playoff holes might be in case people are coming down and happen to be tied for the lead?
No idea, to be honest.
Dang.
I haven't even seen the layout for nationals, so I don't know the layouts for nationals yet.
Okay.
It's certainly going to be a tournament that you're going to walk into being one of the favorites, given that it's your local course, as well as your form. So, I mean, how does there's nothing like someone once said to me, there's nothing like your own bed and bog, and so that'll be quite nice to be able to play a tournament such as nationals and be able to go home afterwards, and be in very familiar surroundings in a perhaps somewhat more relaxed atmosphere. We lost him again.
It looks like we might have frozen again.
Oh no! Oh dear. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Anyway, we'll see if Levi comes back. But yeah. So I think going into nationals, Levi's got to be favourite at this point. If we had to put the odds together now, you'd have to say he's favourite.
I mean, I definitely put him up there. Like, I can't necessarily like rule Jay or Jackson or like Joe out of it. There's some big throwers and big players coming down. Like, are you like Levi's what's his power ranking now?
Oh, he's first. He's the highest ranked player in the country currently.
Yeah. So right. So like theoretically, but arguably it's that still pressure's on. So, like he said, if he's not comfy out the front with a lead, like what's he going to do? Can he stay in the hunt? Can he compete all 3 days with that pressure on him of, I'm the local boy, I'm the young gun, I'm the number 1 rated player in the country. Can I bring home a national title on my home course?
Right. We got him back.
I was going to say, do you think we should let him answer that?
Yeah, I think we should. We've more put more money in the machine, and it's back working again. There we go. I mean, we've had a comment from Johnny who says par 69, which suggests quite a long course, right? You're probably at a par 69 looking at, well, what do you reckon?
Yeah, but Invercargill has 88-meter par fours. So, like,
yeah, no, but
par 69 doesn't really mean
but
anything on the South Island.
Brady, I know I joke about the South Island par 4 being an actual thing, right? Like a native animal. But with a 69 meter, a par 69, you're probably looking. What do you reckon in the range of like 4,000 meters? Am I right there? Do you reckon? Or
well, what was? It all depends because, like, Levi just. Do you know how long the course was in Twizel, Levi?
Nah, no idea.
Yeah, we can check. Hang on. Talk
Probably would have been 1,800 meters, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty.
It was pretty smack bang on 100 meters.
1,600 meters for a par 54. So everything was a free 1,600 meters. So maybe 4,000 is a bit high. Maybe go to 2.5. What was it last year?
I was going to say, like, Nationals wasn't even a par, like 69, like in the idea that was still like, a 3,000 meter course.
Yeah, I mean, so last year it was a par 64 and it's 2,500. So you're probably looking in the region of 2.6, 2.7, I suspect.
Supposedly, if TD Bray Marsden has anything to say about what the course is going to be, we might be able to take his word for it.
Yeah.
But he also, let's hope it starts on the right day. So I was going to say, like, do you have any aspirations overseas, Levi? Like, you're going to go to Australia? Are you going to head to the States at all? Like, what's next for you? What's your future hold after majors in next year?
Well, we're either going to Junior Worlds in the States next year or the year after. Otherwise, there's not been much point turning down cash so far. That's the whole point of the amateur status, I guess.
Yeah.
That will be the closest trip overseas. You might see some fundraising stuff about that, so keep an eye out. As far as other countries go, don't have anything planned.
Certainly, Junior Worlds will be very exciting. Do we know where it is? Whereabouts will you be going?
It's in Peoria, Illinois. So that's
lovely.
They'll have. I know one of the courses that they have is Sunset Hills, which is one of the ones that the FPO play.
Yep.
At Ledgestone, but I don't think they have Lake Eureka.
Excellent. Yeah. So look, it's going to be a very interesting time. The summer is normally a time for playing lots of disc golf. Sounds like you're going to be playing a lot of field work and hopefully doing a lot of studying, passing a lot of exams at the same time because they are important. Arguably, I was going to say arguably more important than disc golf, but I'll let other people make the decision on that. No, they are. And so, look, we wish you the very best of luck, Levi, in both your exams and in your preparations for the big free tournaments next year, and all the ones that the Heisman are in between. And I'm sure we'll talk to you again a little bit closer to the time.
Sweet. I guess I'll leave you for real this time. I just wanted to get my value for money for appearances, Does that one count as free or?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, if you've won 5 in a row, we probably still, owe you another 2 appearances. So, we'll have to bring you on before Nationals.
Excellent. Well, look, have a good one. Thank you so much for joining us, Levi.
Yeah. All right. Sweet. Talk to you later.
Cheers.
See you, Levi.
Bye-bye. Right, yeah. So some interesting points that came out of all of that, I think. And at the moment, if I was putting money on it, then Levi would be my favourite for nationals right now. I think given what's going on, and even if it's past 73,200 meters, which looks like absolutely insane. I'm kind of glad I'm in MA40 for that particular tournament.
You'll still be playing a big course. I'm
Oh
stoked.
yeah,
I'm like, oh sweet, I can finally throw a driver. This is great.
yeah. 6 par 5s, eh? Wow. Okay, well, we'll look forward to that. Anyway, with a few more things that I wanted to have a chat to you about, Brady, this evening. The first of which, and it's come up in the comments, Levi touched on it just at the end of the conversation there, and that's about pro payouts. Levi played MPO this. They certainly do. Some of them do. The P in MPO stands for professional. So I guess if you're playing MPO or any division with a P in it, you probably expect to take away some cash if you win. Now at Twizel, there was no cash prizes for the winners here, right? So the winners of the MPO division, it definitely was an MPO division. It wasn't just called MA1 because there wasn't any pro payout. It wasn't any cash payouts. I mean, they could have just bumped everything down, right? But no, that wasn't the case. It was called a professional division, and there were no pro payouts. Now, it has happened in New Zealand in the past, I'm sure, and I'm sure people who you can probably remember, and there'll be people in the comments who can tell us as well. What are your thoughts on this? I know that you're a staunch amateur, so what are your thoughts? Do you care, or is this actually not a problem, but is this a thing?
I would say that it's a dying trend, a passing fad, a fad that's passed. You brought it up just then. So like you focused their men's professional open division, right? MPO. You focused specifically on the
it's mixed professional open. Sorry to pick you up on that, but it's mixed.
Oh, is it really?
It is, yeah. It's not men's because it's open to anyone. But anyway, carry
on. I stand corrected. Thank you very much. That's wonderful to hear, actually. I like that a lot. So yeah, but you focus specifically on the P, the professional side of that division, compared to New Zealand in the past is focused on the O, the open side. Largely tournaments of the past. I know that Twizel was run by none other than Martin Galli in Disc Golf Wanaka. And so, like he's a little bit of that old guard. So, like mostly was probably focused more on the open side of things rather than the professional side of things. Like I, with the Middle Earth Open, like have grown a tournament that have always paid cash prizes. Like it started out really small, like the first tournament I ever held, the mixed professional open division, the MPO division paid out, it was $100 for the winner. And then like I over time, like you grow that, and now we're seeing purses that are, like $1,500, $1,000 for the top prize. Levi turned down $1,000 for second at nationals.
Now I've heard a rumor, right, that the pro purse for nationals in 2023 is $20,000.
I'm not surprised. I've heard they've had very good support for the event.
And that's just incredible, right? I mean, what was the? I mean, I don't want to make a comparison, but I mean, what's the purse been in past tournaments? It's been, I mean, it was like, I think $6,000 at one. I've got the smash results here actually.
So nationals was the biggest. When I held nationals in Wellington, it was the biggest at $6,000 worth of payout.
Yeah.
On top of prizes and that kind of stuff. Like the event itself was close to what it sounds like they were paying out for what's coming up at nationals. And arguably, like they've had great support. Like Wellington, it's been a lot harder when it comes to fundraising so far to grow the sport and to like bring in those bigger, especially like cash sponsors. We've had a lot of luck, and a lot of tournament directors tend to have better luck getting like kind of merchandise and prize support rather than like payout. So yeah, like it's not surprising that some payouts for certain tournaments will be a little bit low. And, like some tournament directors are still kind of learning how to budget. So they can't necessarily always budget correctly and budget at a profit or a way that they can give back to the open division. So yeah, it's tricky and it'll be interesting. I'm actually looking forward to see. I know Johnny Ferrari and Bray, you guys are still in the comments. Is women's payout for nationals going to be the same as men's? Like they did for the Disc Golf Pro Tour? Is that something that you guys are trying to do? Is that something you care about, Matt? Like, how do you feel? I know that you're a big supporter of the women's global event. How do you feel when it comes to our national tournaments?
So just a couple of comments that have come in that I want to address before, and I'll get to that one in a second. First one is Zach. Does PDGA have a matrix for payout? Yes, it does. And so you can go onto the PDGA website and download an Excel calculator. You put in how much cash you've got. You put in how many places you want to play out. Typically, it's the top 40%, and then it calculates for you and rounds it to the nearest $5 of how much everybody gets. Right, and so that's a dead easy way. And if you're at all unsure about how you should do your payouts, do it that way, right? Because it removes any kind of guesswork or it's this and that, right? And so there is a calculator for it on the PDGA website. Do I think they should be paid out the same? Now, here's the key, right? Here's the difference. The ladies division is a lot smaller than the men's division, right? So if you pay the same amount for the ladies division as you do for the men's division, you're still probably going to be paying out the top 40%. But if you've got 4 times as many players in the men's division, then you're paying out 4 times as many spots, which means in the ladies division, the equivalent spot is taking home 4 times the amount in order for it to kind of add up, right? For the kind of relative position of the person. So I'm not sure that balance is quite correct. Now, of the 20,000 that is rumored for the nationals next year, it's difficult to say how much the winner will take. But I suspect that of that 20,000, the winner will take around about $2,000. I suspect for the winner. I reckon an equivalent amount for the ladies division, given the size of the division, should absolutely be done. I don't think you should lower the amount for any reason other than the size of the division and the people playing, number of people playing. Well, yeah, because you'd scale the payout for the men's division based on that as well, right? Now, something that's interesting, and you mentioned it was a dying trade. I want to just share with you something here, which is the PDGA International Tour Events Standards. So these, worth noting, these are the international standards, right? So these are the ones that actually apply to New Zealand. In the past, we've been accused of using the PDGA site and then not applying the international standards, which are a little bit looser than the PDGA ones. But I'll make this a bit bigger so you can see it. On this page, and I didn't. This is new for me because I obviously look at these documents relatively often. But if you have a look at this. Pro payout as a percentage of entry fees, 0% required, 33% recommended, right? So what it's saying is that you add up all the entry fees of the people playing, and for Twizel, it was $85 each, I think, to enter. And so for the MPO division, where there was 20 players, 85 times 20 was 1,700. Is that right? Sounds about right. Where's my 85 times 20? Sounds about right. 1,700. Take a third of that. So you've got about $560. Should have been as a minimum paid out to the players in the top 40% of those people at Twizel. So the top 5 places, 6 people in this case. Levi, Jackson, Callie, Joseph, and Jasper, and then Ethan should have received a payout. Now, whether they accepted or not is different, and Levi would have obviously said no because he wants to play Junior World, etc., and it would have filtered down. However, here's the key bit, right? You'll notice the 2 little stars on the end here. 33% payout of entry fees will be required at all international C-tier events in 2023. So from next year, people will not be able to do this. What's happened in Twizel, you will have to pay out 33% of the payout. Otherwise, you're breaking the PDGA's tour standards, and there will be people who complain. I will be one of them, and so you will have to factor that. Any tournament directors will have to factor that into their calculations. What's also interesting is that the amateur payouts, although amateurs don't get payouts, there is value to the player packs and the prizes that they win. That has to also be 33% of the entry fees. And this has to be, and when they talk about value here, and there's a bit about it on a link, it has to be actual value, not potential value. And the difference, I think, do they call it potential value, or do they call it something else? Allowable items, and then if you go to this, they talk about it's either realized value or potential value. And the difference is realized value is like $50 off at a pro shop, or a t-shirt, or a disc, right? An actual thing that you can go, I don't need to spend any money in order to get hold of this, right? Potential value is like 10% off at a shop. So if you've got a voucher as a prize for 10% off at a particular shop, you have to spend money to realize that benefit. That's not actual value and won't be counted as a prize that contributes towards the 33%, right? You can still give it away as a prize, but it wouldn't be something which you could put towards the 33% in order to satisfy that condition of the tour standards. So I think that's an interesting thing and an interesting change. I think it's probably worth everybody in New Zealand who's thinking about running a tournament to just browse over these international tour standards, because these apply to all A, B, C, PDGA tour events in international countries, which is all countries outside the US and Canada, of which New Zealand is one. We don't get a special exemption because we're just here. We don't get a special exemption because we just do it our way and she'll be all right. This is the way you have to do it. So it's probably worth anybody who's running a tournament, especially from 2023 onwards, to equate themselves with some of the tour standards here. Brady, thoughts?
Well, one thing I need to correct you on is that for C-tier events, you can offer merchandise in place of cash. And so Levi at Twizel, had he won, could have taken merchandise in the form of like RPM bucks or Disc Golf Wanaka or Vortica bucks, like whatever you want to call it, for the equivalent value. So the idea of, and I've done that at events in the past. A lot of the times for C-tier events, I will play the open division because I can take merchandise instead. You know, like I've won heaps of disc golf money from RPM, from Disc Shop, I walk away with discs and plastic all the time for taking merchandise rather than cash when I do cash it at certain level events. But things like Nationals is going to be an A tier. A tier, if you're playing in the open division and you turn down cash, like you said before, it goes to the next one in line, you know, like, and that's what happened at Nationals last year. It'll be interesting to see what happens at Nationals this year, because like you said, going forward, you're going to have to start paying out down the line. And so the idea of, like TDs are going to have to start thinking about, do you really want to offer an open division? Do you really want it an A tier event? To be honest, you can have a C tier event with $10,000 worth of added cash, but you could literally keep it C tier just to keep the handcuffs off when it comes to like what you want to do. So, I'd love to, host a C tier event, $10,000 extra cash, $5,000 top prize, that you could take in RPM bucks. It's like, sweet, here's your own disc golf course because you won and you're a junior and don't have one in Teano, like whatever, and I'd love to see that kind of stuff. And so I definitely think there are hoops that you're going through. And I do agree with you, like that TDs have to be smarter going forward, but like Martin and Disc Golf Wanaka, like obeyed the rules, followed the rules. There is 0% requirement. So, like if they didn't pay out, they didn't pay out, and you can be,
I agree. No, I agree that they have followed the rules, and I don't dismiss. I don't disagree that they haven't followed the rules. They have. From next year, they won't be able to do that. What they did this year, they will have to offer a pro payout. So what my point is that there's going to be a transition, and if people thought that there was an expectation, I've certainly had enough comments this. I've had enough comments this week over the payouts or lack thereof at Twizel that people have made to me, for it to be A, worthy of discussion, and B, to give me a sense that actually people were expecting a pro payout and that it didn't deliver. So, I mean, whether it's something that you should have been advertised prior, not that it will be necessary to do so in the future, but is perhaps another thing. Would that have influenced whether people wanted to play or not? Don't know.
It's also a requirement for B and A tier events that you need to publish what the payouts are going to be prior to the final day. So the idea of, like, for nationals, I had to published, I believe, Saturday night, the night before, what payouts were going to be for the following day. I'm pretty sure Hayden just did that for Armageddon and Toronga. So the idea of, and I suspect that will happen for nationals going forward.
Absolutely,
Which I was going to say, and this kind of leads us into the next part of the discussion that I know you wanted to talk about. So I'll let you kind of kick it off. That idea of tournament fees, like registration fees, are, to be honest, going through the roof. Like, I thought vegetable prices were going up, but like $88 for no payout at Twizel. Did they get a players pack? Like, what are your thoughts on players pack, perceived value, tournament registrations? What are your thoughts? Kick us off on this little discussion here.
Yeah, look, so I'll be honest. I've entered these 3 majors for next year, and it's expensive. It's expensive to enter them. And I'm coming from a town in New Zealand that I have to fly to 2 of the events. I can drive to the other, but none of them are in my hometown. Right now, for a lot of people who live in Taupo, Christchurch, or Invercargill, the costs are going to be a lot lower, or even in Queenstown and Dunedin, because their proximity to those tournaments is a lot less. Or greater, I don't know, whichever way you want to do it. But let's just have a look at the actual tournament entry fees for the 3 big tournaments next year, right? And we'll take we'll look at a few case studies here, because obviously not everybody plays MPO. So we'll have a look at what it would cost to play MPO and also MA2. Okay, which is a division I think a lot of people offer, and also a division that a lot of people play in, right? So MPO is 140 in Christchurch. I'm just writing these down so we can add it up. And MA1 is 110, and 110 seems to be the kind of standard amateur cost, and 140 is the standard professional cost. This is the Garden City Open. Then if we go along to the Southern Smash, which is obviously nationals, you got again 140 for Open and 100 for MA2. Obviously, juniors and etc. is lower, as you perhaps expect. And finally, at Topor, the costs are 160 for Open, rounding up there, and 130 for MA2, right? So if I'm an MA2 player who's starting out and I'm wanting to play these tournaments, the cost of entering the tournaments before I've paid for accommodation, before I've paid for travel, before I've paid for food, before I've paid for treating myself to a disc and a cap from the pro shop or whatever, right, is $340 if I'm playing in MA2 and $440 if I'm playing MPO for 3 tournaments. Okay. Now, question is, do I think that represents value? What I do think is that I do think it's on par with kind of what the PDGA would recommend is the cost to pay, right? So it's in the PDGA's kind of bracket of costs. They reckon that an MPO and ATA should pay between $70 and $140, which is incredibly wide view.
But that's also American prices. So
yeah,
that
American
would be
prices.
like $200 here.
Well, yeah, but no, $70 is what is about 110, 120 New Zealand dollars, right? So it's perhaps towards the lower end of that PDGA recommendation. However, yeah, I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot of money. I think it's a lot of money. And I can see that it would put people off. However, what I also see is I see these events selling out. So I it's the market being what the market does, which is dictating the price that people can charge, right? And it's a fair, free market, and as a result, I think that's fair. I'm a libertarian at heart, and so I think, yeah, if a tournament director can sell a tournament out for an amount of money, then that's the value that people have put on it. If other people don't place the same value on it, then all right, that's fine. People have got different ideas of what is different values, and that's totally okay. What I would say is what really I think needs to happen is I think that there needs to be this kind of intermediate tier that comes into New Zealand tournaments, these one-dayers, these smaller weekend events that are in the $50 to $90 range, right? Maybe even lower for a one-dayer, that perhaps more accessible, are perhaps more catered towards the local player and the MA2, MA3 divisions, so that there's not this feeling of shit. If I want to play a disc golf tournament, I've got to shell out $150 because they're the only ones that exist, right? Yeah. Brady, I'm gonna have a read through the comments. What are your thoughts? Because we've had loads coming through, which is great. But let's have
the comments are great, and arguably, yeah, we could spend. Evan Williams said it correctly. We could spend an entire episode on covering just this. Like this, arguably, I have been having this exact conversation with other TDs around the country for years, because I'm very interested to see the future of this sport and this idea of people complaining about Twizel. Will there get a point where players say, I'm not going to pay that much to attend that event? There'll be events that don't get sold out because of courses, because of fees, because of like TDs, there'll be certain events that's like, yeah, I'm just not going to go to that because I haven't had a good experience with like that TD or on that course or with that club. Like the idea of like, yes, don't get me wrong. Like personal experience, I've been running tournaments annually for the last 8 years. Like I know what it takes to run good events, and you can run great small budget events, like I've done like what, like what Topor just did, what Taranaki about to do, like a lot of these kind of smaller entry level events, like that are renting out golf courses, which takes so much money. Like we're very blessed in Berhampore that we have a public course that's, a little bit cheaper than some of the courses like Hagley Park down south, like Inglewood up north, like Topor, that, we can kind of sneak away with lower fees and that kind of stuff. But yeah, like I kind of wonder when enough is enough. And that idea too of, you're like you talked about just then, you talk about the market, you talk about the player, you talk about that the player is dictating what is happening. And I am interested because I do come from both, like I run events and I pay for events to go to. And so there's that balance of, okay, like what, like you said, like, a $50 to a $90 event, does that become a one-day event? Like why can't we have a $50 2-day event? Why does it have to, people joke about, and like Chris Kingsnorth, if you're listening, I'm sure that you've known this, and a lot of the old guard and that kind of stuff, people I've been playing with for 10 years, we remember being able to register 2 days before event, be able to rock up at 5:00 Friday, the day before, pay our $20 and play in the event for the weekend. Like that was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago that we were able to do that. And we can't do that now. No. And so like, yeah, like it's interesting that you talk about bringing in this one day and kind of what Generation is doing down south. And it's, yeah, I am curious. And I think maybe we should, Evan, I'll take Evan's advice. Maybe we should dedicate an episode to, let's just call it the future of the tour. Bray, like Bray, if you're still listening, maybe we'll bring you on as well. Mr. NZDG, we'll let you put your tour hat on for a little while. I can kind of talk about this future and where is it going and who dictates it? Is it the market? Is it the national body? Like, is it TDs? Like, will TDs get fed up and be like, man, I don't want to, sweet, I'm selling out 200-person events for $200 a piece and making heaps of money, but people are getting no value out of it because it's just going into the pockets of the TD, the golf club, the whatever. It'll be interesting. I think we should break out and talk about this more in a future episode.
Okay, because I think it's a fantastic, and Evan's absolutely right. We will spend a whole episode on this. Nationals is $140, right? And it's sold out with 260 people have purchased or have played. And in that MPO division, there is 40. Is it 40? 40 people are playing in MPOs. 40 people have played their 55 people in MPO have paid their $140, and 100 people have paid their $140 to play in a professional division, right? So I guess my question is, if that's $160, do you get the same sign up? Probably. If it's $180, do you get the same sign up? Do you get the same sign up at 200? What about 250? Right? Where's the break point? What point are we at? Right? Because there'll be tournament directors out there going, well, hold it. If people are willing to pay $200, why aren't we charging $200? Makes sense, right? You'd see it in retail, you'd see it in other industries. If people are willing to pay it, then that's what people will get charged, because that's what a free market is, and how value is defined and priced. So I think I think it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. Let's get onto that as a separate episode. Talking of future episodes, you're going to want to stick around next week. If you've got any interest at all in the wall that's behind me, the wall that was behind Levi, or any of the discs that might be stowed away somewhere in Brady's flat, and you're a bit of a collector. Because we've got a special collectors episode coming on next week, where we've got some of the most learned collectors in New Zealand, notably Tom Strawbridge, Henry Pearson, Jay Avante, and Ethan Stout are all going to be joining us next week. And we're going to have a big conflab about collecting discs, what you need to do if you want to be a collector, what to look out for when you're collecting discs, how you should store them, how you should take care of them, what's got value, what kind of things to look out for, what kind of things to be aware of and avoid. And so it should be a lot of fun. There's a couple of whales in that group who have got some very, very nice discs in their hand. And I've promised them that their significant others won't be watching, so they can talk freely about purchase discs.
Because I was going to say, I'm looking forward to that episode because, one, I want to see if you can convince me to buy a disc, not to throw it.
Oh, you've got discs that you don't throw, and not because you don't throw them because they're beat up.
I did not buy them.
Oh, okay, right. You've won them or been given them. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Correct. So, like, I have certain tournament discs or certain discs from players. I even have throwers that I've had signed that I've now, like, retired, I guess.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
But I haven't bought them. So the idea of buying a disc specifically to collect or display. And I think we'll have to talk about that next week. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's an easy question for me to answer right now, right? Is that people do it with artwork all the time. People buy paintings and put them up on the wall, and they do that. Well, and paintings have got
maybe I just need to take Ethan's advice.
I don't have time for a significant other. Yeah, indeed. Anyway, that'll be a lot of fun. That's coming up next week, so make sure you tune in to next week's episode. Now, something which happened during the week, right? It's been lovely weather here in Wellington this week. It's been the clocks have gone forward. The evenings have been lovely, and I think it was Tuesday night I headed down to Poole Crescent Reserve for a round of Wainui disc golf. Dion Rawadi has done a great job down in Poole Crescent in building baskets, and many of them are bike wheels with chains hanging from the spokes that fall into a tire. That kind of thing. Anyway, it's a lovely course. It's quite technical in places. You don't need a big arm. I managed to stroll around and get par relatively easily, so I'm sure that many people watching the show could come down and absolutely tear it up. But that's not my point, right? It's simply setting the picture. Because I was on my own, right? The person who I was going to play disc golf with on that evening, unfortunately, couldn't make it. So I went down on my own, indeed, sad face, and so threw a few shots off each tee, because that's what you do when you're on your own. And it got to the last hole on hole 9, and it's a little 60-meter kind of semi-tunnel. You've played down Wainui before, Brady. I'm sure you know the hole.
Not yet.
You have it. Oh, okay. Well, it's a kind of a tunnel. You don't want to hyzer out too much because you end up in a bush, but you also can't. It's basically dead straight. And it's about 60 meters, something like that. Paul Crescent for 2024 Nationals, brilliant. It's a dead straight shot, and I threw like my 6th disc off the tee, and it hit the tire, which was the basket, right? With my Orbit River. No, it didn't stick because it didn't hit chains. It hit the cage, basically, right?
Okay.
And it got me thinking: is that an ace? If it had gone in, right, it needed to be about a foot higher. It was dead center, but it needed to be about a foot higher, right? If that had gone in, is that an ace? Because like it was the 6th shot that I'd already sprayed it all over the fairway, right? But this 6th one happened to go straight down the middle, and then it hit the cage. But had it gone in, and I was thinking to myself, no one was there to watch it, no one saw it. Not even any kind of passers-by or dog walkers or anything. So I couldn't, I would have just been a silly man in the field going crazy. But like, is an ace, is that an ace? Because I've shot it off my 6th throw. What are your thoughts on this? Because I was kind of thinking.
Well, then there's that question.
I know it didn't go in. It doesn't count if it doesn't go in. No, I get that. I'm not disputing that. But I'm saying if it had gone in, right? Let's say it had been a foot higher and hit chains and gone in and landed and been supported by the chains or the basket and etc. Is it an ace? Because,
first off, I do have to point out that you are getting trolled on your own show by your wife, which is incredible. So all the viewers out there, so you know, this is Matt's wife leaving a comment trolling him on his own not ace on his local course. So now that that's out of the way, I would call it an ace. So, because I've had that actually happen in a tournament before.
Your 6th throw off the tee. What did you go OB or what?
Yeah. So right. And so I might call that 6th throw a hole in one rather than an ace, because it wasn't your first throw and it wasn't like a tournament round. But yeah, So I was playing a tournament in Tomarunui. Hole 5, which is very notorious, has been around for a long time, where basically the tee is right next to a fence line. You have fence line running the entire length of the hole, where basically you throw directly out of bounds if you're right-hand backhand thrower, backhand hyzer coming at the basket. So if you throw it out of bounds, you pretty much move up, have terrible footing. You're right next to the fence. So it's a terrible place to take your out of bounds from. So rather than, I had a player on my card. This was Seep Van Vliet from Waiheke Island, for anyone who remembers. And this is the best circle 3 I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, he throws pretty much straight out of bounds, never comes back in, finishes around pin high. Says, I don't want to play along the fence. That's a bad thing. I'm going to abandon that throw, and I'm going to re-tee for 3. Throws the same shot a little bit higher, comes back, heart of the chains, smash. Best circle 3 I've ever seen. So his second shot off of the tee for a circle 3 was a hole in one. Is that a fairway ace? Is that like a circle? Technically on the card, it's a circle 3. But you could argue that it's a great hole in one.
Yeah, good par. Look, I was thinking to myself, it can't, but it's different. Is it different in tournament or just sort of me chozzing around on my local course? I don't know.
Well, a lot of the times, So Ben brings it up, and I know that
Silver
that's a South Island thing that's come, like the bag ace, as it were. So, like you're out for a practice round, you're throwing heaps of shots, you hit one of your spare shots. You know what I mean? A bag ace, same as like a field of a fairway ace, right? Of like when you throw it in from like outside 50 meters.
Yeah, but that's just a good throw-in. I don't think that's a fairway ace. Is just a way of trying to convince yourself that a throw-in was anything better than a throw-in. And generally it doesn't need to be, because throwing it in from any distance outside circle 2 is magnificent. So, like, I don't know why that's a thing. I don't think it is an ace. I mean, I don't know what you describe, but for me, an ace is you walk up to the tee, it's your first shot off that tee, and it can be a practice round, it can be a tournament round, it can be whatever, and it's your first shot off the tee, and it goes in. And it can hit trees, it can skip, it can do whatever. You can't have a kid come and pick it and drop it in. That doesn't count. But like, if it naturally goes in, then I think that counts. That's an ace, right? If I'm throwing it like my sick throw, then no, I don't think that is an ace. I'm not.
But what about a black ace then?
Well, a black ace is a black ace. And it doesn't hold the same. I mean, you're not flooding to Instagram to post about your black ace, are you? I mean, no one's doing that, because often it means you've shanked your drive.
No, heaps of people are doing that at USDGC.
What? Because they throw
Freeman and Bradley Williams both hit a black ace on the tunnel hole at USDGC because the FPO pin was in place during the practice day. That they both aced on the FPO pin, even though they were MPO playing to the MPO.
Yeah, but okay, but like most black aces are because you've hit the wrong basket on a hole that's coming back in the opposite direction, right? For example, hole 7's pin on hole 7's basket of a koi from the tee pad of hole 2, right? A shank means you're going towards that basket. Now, I'm not posting about that when I get home. That doesn't count, right? So I don't. I think it's got to be your first shot. So I'm calling it here now, right? Anyone comes to me and says, "Oh yeah, I got an ace," and all their bag is on the floor, like all around the basket. Nah, don't count. Got to be your first throw for me. Black ace is a black ace if it's on a different basket. Otherwise, you just hit something in the middle of the field. And so, yeah, I mean, that's how I see it. I don't.
So, are you saying a bag ace needs to go into room 101? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, that's a very good point. Maybe. Well, we're gonna revisit room 101 at another time in the future. I enjoyed that. Maybe it should go in a bag ace. Yeah, especially when people post it and sit there and like whatever. I think that's I think that's quite amusing. I think you should know. If you hit it, obviously, and the reason I bring this up, there was 4 aces at Twizel, if you'll believe. 4 aces in one tournament at Twizel. I'm just going to get the...
It's the South Island. They're 100-meter holes. It's fine. What happens down there?
All these South Island par 4s. Yeah, that was an albatross on each one of them. So they did very well. No, so... but yeah, 4 aces. Dave Keane got one. Roberts Craston's got one. Russell King got one, and someone else got one. Someone remind me who the 4th person was who got one. I've got it here. If someone in the comments can beat me to it, then go for it. Sean Brown, hole 7. So well done. 4 players hit aces at the weekend, which is actually, I mean, yeah, it was a short course, right? It's a short course. 1,600 meters over 18 holes is pretty short. Right. Where are we?
Do we have upcoming events or power rankings we need to get to? Any changes?
Yeah, we do. We need to do this. Then we need to do this. And let's go to upcoming events. And power rankings, which have been updated, and I've got a little bit of an update for you on this, so which will be very exciting for everybody, I'm sure, because it's something that's been very much requested. But here we go, upcoming events for next few weeks. Bethels is this weekend up in Auckland. Brady, in this one, Simon and Jackson go head-to-head once again. Callie Thompson makes the trip up from Christchurch. And Anthony Rogers is back in the country. So a pretty relatively stacked field. You've also got Henry Pearson and Philippe Schinsel, who could also do some work. And Chris Sinai is also heading up from Wellington. So there's a relatively strong MPO field that's playing in MA1. Nicholas Gouldner, who played very well in Nelson. Ethan Taylor's got quite the arm, local from Auckland in MA1. Josh Pratt and Steve Brown-Hawke also been playing very well recently. And let's not forget Mike Foley, who played very well in Topor. And in FA1, Rotorua, sorry. Sorry, Tauranga. You're right. Absolutely right. Sorry. I'm confusing myself. In FA1, Paula Wilson takes on Amy Whitmore and Wellington's Michaela Kerr. So best of luck to them. A very Auckland-heavy MA40 division that all look to be relatively similarly rated. So that could be quite a good battle. And similar could be said for MA2, almost entirely Auckland MA2 division. So yeah, looks like it's going to be a good event up in Auckland this weekend at Beffels. Probably still spaces left if you want to get involved. Then speak to Mike Foley, who's on the chat now, and he can hook you up. Next week is Wahitapu in Lake Ohau, and that's been sold out. Then it's the Bros for Change Charity Classic. Drew Gibson playing in Christchurch for that. Weekend after that is Wellington's Faultline Fury in the Temuka Tussle. Day at the Lake in Te Anau is the weekend after that, and then the Christchurch Fling rounds out the year. The tickets for the Christchurch Fling go on sale in 10 days' time. Into the new year, and it's Egg Monster and the Roxburgh Open, and then we come to some of the biggest events of the year, not least the Wellington Centurion. In terms of biggest events, it's probably the biggest event, actually, in terms of holes played. And then Highlander, and then the three big ones at the end of the summer. And finally, we're going to go into the rankings. There's been a small change in the ladies division. So Eilish Kumak jumps up one space ahead of Charlotte Dunkley to take third spot, and Echo Lee climbs 6 spaces up to 11th. In the MPO division, Callie Thompson is up 16 spots to 7th place following his tie for 2nd place. And Sebastian Faulkner, who took out, I think it was 4th overall, climbs 14 spaces to 17. Kyle Barringer, who finished 2nd place in MA1 over the weekend, climbed 100 spots from 147th to 47th. So congratulations to Kyle Barringer. Now, something which has been requested many times from people about rankings is, hey, can we see our rankings when it's not on the when they're not, not on a Thursday night, not on the show? And the answer now is, of course, yes. Right. So what you need to do, you need to head over to sweetchairmusic.co.nz. It looks a little bit like this. You need to head over to the menu bar and hit Power Rankings. And when you do, it will take you to the New Zealand Power Rankings. From here, you can select any number of entries. So you can select the top 100 if you want and go all the way down to see your name and hit next. And this covers all 213 players who currently form part of the rankings. You can search for your name if you can't find it, and you can find out where you're positioned.
Oh man, moved up 1. Let's go.
We did, and yeah, and you can search for the ladies and men MPO divisions from there. Search to your heart's content. And so I'll leave you all to go crazy on that. So, yeah, quite a requested feature of the rankings. So, yeah, we update those after every tour event. So yeah. Right. Collectors episode next week. Beffels this weekend. Anything else to cover, Brady?
Oh, I don't think so. I think we've covered quite a bit. We got more episodes on the books now. Going to have a future tour event. Yeah,
well,
should be good.
We'll certainly look forward to that. But wherever you're playing disc golf, Take it easy, play well, get some birdies, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.